Welcome to our podcast. Why 5 a.m.? Wakes me up, but not just for productivity.
I used to think waking up at 5 a.m. was only for people chasing something. Goals, success, a head start on the world. Like they were somehow better than the rest of us. More disciplined, more determined. And for a long time, I kind of hated them for it, because I couldn't do it. I tried. Set the alarm. Put the phone across the room. Promised myself I'd start a new life tomorrow. But then 5 a.m. came and it felt cruel. Too quiet. Too honest. Like it was asking me questions I wasn't ready to answer. But then something changed. I stopped trying to wake up early for productivity. And I started waking up for presence. For silence. For that soft space where the world hasn't started demanding anything from me yet. No emails. No expectations. No noise. Just me, barefaced, half awake, and completely real. That's when I realized 5 a.m. doesn't have to be about hustle. It can be about healing. It can be about sitting in the dark and feeling your own breath. It can be about remembering who you are before the world tells you who to be. And once I tasted that kind of peace, I didn't want to sleep through it anymore.
You know what's strange? Before I ever tried waking up at 5, I always thought early mornings belonged to people who had it all together. Like they had routines with lemon water and 10-step journaling rituals and playlists called peaceful productivity. And I was just the messy one, who couldn't get out of bed without scrolling through my phone for 40 minutes. But the first morning I actually got up, not because I had to, but because I wanted to. It was quiet in a way I hadn't felt in years. It wasn't about checking anything off. It wasn't about reading 10 pages of a self-help book or running 5 kilometers. It was just about remembering what it felt like to be with myself, before the world could tell me who to be that day. I sat there, with this mug that still smelled like dish soap, and a hoodie that was too warm, and I just breathed. Not deep breaths for calming my nervous system or anything fancy, just regular breaths, the kind that don't need fixing. And in that small stillness, I felt like I could hear my life again. The parts that had been whispering, while I was too busy scrolling, too busy achieving, too busy pretending to be okay. And the thing is, I didn't feel powerful. I didn't feel productive. I felt human. And weirdly, that was more than enough.
That hit so deeply, because I used to associate stillness with laziness. I thought if I wasn't moving, I was falling behind. So the idea of waking up and not immediately doing something felt foreign to me, almost uncomfortable. But then I had this moment. It was maybe the third day I tried getting up at 5. And I remember just watching my cat, curled up in the softest part of the couch, completely unbothered by time. And I thought, what if I gave myself that same softness? What if I stopped measuring the worth of a morning by how much I could get done, and started measuring it by how gently I could arrive in it? So I stopped trying to win the morning. I stopped trying to fit it into a narrative that made sense to other people. And I started listening to the parts of me that only spoke up when everything else was quiet. The tired part. The sad part. The part that needed to grieve things I never gave myself time to grieve. And suddenly those early hours became less about being ahead and more about being whole. I wasn't trying to get a head start on anyone anymore. I was trying to stop leaving parts of myself behind.
You know what's beautiful about that? The way stillness in the morning invites you back into your own rhythm, because the rest of the day, it's like you're constantly adjusting to someone else's beat. Deadlines, meetings, notifications, small talk. But when you wake up at 5, before the notifications, before the caffeine, you remember what it's like to move without performance, to breathe without rushing, to just be. And I think that's why I keep coming back to it. Not because I need to be productive, but because I need to feel like myself again. And 5 in the morning, that's the only time I've found where I don't have to explain that to anyone. I can just exist, uninterrupted, unedited, and maybe that's the point. Not to get ahead of the day, but to stop letting the day get ahead of me.
You know what I've realized? Waking up early didn't change my life in a grand, dramatic way. There was no fireworks moment, no sudden clarity about who I'm meant to be. It was more like a quiet unlearning, like shedding this idea that I always need to be somewhere else, better, faster, more efficient. And instead, I learned to be here, with the cold floor under my feet, with the soft hum of the refrigerator, with the ache in my back from a restless sleep. Nothing polished, nothing curated, just life as it is. And strangely, those were the mornings I started hearing myself again. Not the loud, anxious voice that wants to impress people, but the soft one, the one that whispers, "You're okay. You're enough. You're still here." I used to be afraid of that quiet because it felt like nothing was happening. But now I know that's where everything real begins. Not in motion, but in meaning. Not in productivity, but in presence.
That makes me think of something I read once about how we confuse stillness with stagnation and speed with progress. Like if you're not moving, you're failing. But what if you're just becoming? What if growth isn't loud? What if it's slow, silent, and unseen for a long time, like roots under soil? No one sees them, but they're the reason anything stands. That's what 5 a.m. has been for me, a place beneath the noise, where I get to lay roots again, where I can ask myself the questions I've been too distracted to answer, where I can feel sad without needing to fix it, where I can feel joy without needing to post about it, where I can just sit in my own skin and not feel like I'm wasting time by doing so. And honestly, that's the most radical thing I've done in years. Not some morning challenge, not some perfect productivity system, but just being with myself, fully, before the world wakes up and starts pulling at me in all directions again.
Exactly. And what's funny is that now when people ask me why I wake up so early, I don't even know how to answer in one sentence. Because it's not about tips and tricks. It's not about a routine I can package and sell. It's not a lifestyle upgrade. It's a lifeline. It's me, learning to meet myself where I am, not where I wish I was. And some mornings, I don't do anything worthwhile. I sit. I stare at the wall. I listen to the sound of the city yawning awake. And that's enough. It's not glamorous, but it's grounding. And in a world that's constantly shouting at you to be more, to do more, to prove yourself, there's something so powerful about choosing stillness, not as an escape, but as a return to breath, to body, to self, to everything I've ignored, because I thought the world wouldn't wait for me. But it does. At 5 a.m., before anyone else is watching, the world waits, and I finally let myself arrive.
Some mornings I don't even make it out of bed right away. I just lie there, eyes open, watching the ceiling fade from dark to light, and that in-between space, before the sun fully rises, before my brain starts listing out everything I need to do. It feels like sacred ground, like no one can reach me there, not my insecurities, not my guilt, not the pressure to show up for anyone else. And in that space, I remember things, not facts or to-dos, but feelings, people I haven't thought about in years, moments I forgot I carried, like the way my mom used to hum in the kitchen, or the time I cried on the bus and no one looked at me, but I didn't feel alone somehow. I think waking up at 5 isn't about becoming someone new. It's about returning to who you were, before the noise, before the performance, before the world trained you to be efficient instead of tender. And no, it doesn't always feel magical. Some mornings it's just me and my messy thoughts and a stale piece of bread. But even then, there's something grounding about it, like I'm choosing myself, before anyone else gets a chance to shape me that day.
That's what I've been chasing all along, without knowing it. Not success, not motivation, not even clarity. Just a place where I can be real and not have to justify it. I used to wake up already behind, even on days when nothing was urgent. I felt like I was late for something I couldn't name. And that feeling, it steals from you. It steals your breath, your joy, your softness. But when I started giving myself the gift of those early hours, not every day, not perfectly, but intentionally, I noticed I didn't hate myself as much. I wasn't so hard on the version of me that moved slowly, or forgot things, or didn't know what the hell she was doing. I started meeting myself with grace. And now, even when life gets loud again, when the day takes over, I still carry that quiet with me, like a soft thread in my pocket, reminding me, you are allowed to slow down. You are allowed to be undone and still worthy. You are allowed to begin again, as many times as it takes. And sometimes I wonder how many versions of myself I've abandoned just because I didn't give her time to speak. How many mornings I filled with noise, with scrolling, with rushing, just to avoid hearing my own quiet truth. But now, when the world is still, and it's just me in the air before sunrise, I feel her again, the girl I left behind in the busyness, the one who used to sit with her thoughts without running from them, the one who didn't yet know how to pretend. I think we forget that healing isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just sitting in your room when everyone else is asleep, and forgiving yourself for all the times you didn't show up. For you. That's what 5 a.m. is for me now. It's not a hack, not a strategy, not a performance. It's a conversation with the parts of me that never needed to be fixed, just heard. And no one claps for those mornings. No one sees them. There's no applause, no recognition, just breath, just light, just one small choice to be gentle when you could have kept being harsh. And honestly, that's the kind of transformation I trust. The quiet kind, the kind that doesn't need to prove itself, because it already knows it's real. So I wake up, not because I have everything figured out, not because I want to be better than anyone, but because it's the only time I remember I already am enough, before I even do a single thing.
You know what I never expected? That waking up early would change the way I listen to people, not just hearing their words, but actually holding space for them, without immediately filling the silence. Before, I'd rush to respond, to advise, to fix, like silence made me nervous. But those early mornings taught me how to stay, in the quiet, with myself first, and then with others. Now, when someone tells me they're tired, I don't ask why. When someone says they feel lost, I don't hand them a map. I just let them be. The way I'm finally learning to let myself be. It's strange how much noise we carry, just because we've never been taught how to hold quiet. And now I see it everywhere. In conversations, in relationships, in the way people talk over their own feelings, like they're afraid of what might come out if they pause for too long. But pausing isn't the problem. It's the beginning. It's the space where something true might finally have the courage to show up. And maybe that's the real gift of 5 a.m. It rewires how I move through the world, how I show up in rooms. Not trying to be the loudest, but trying to be the safest. Because if I can hold space for myself, at my most tired, my most unfiltered, then maybe I can do that for someone else too. Not to save them, but just to sit with them while they find their own way through.
There's also something about watching the world wake up without you, like standing at the edge of a river that hasn't noticed you yet. For once, you're not chasing the current. You're just observing it, realizing how much of your life has been lived on autopilot. And fast forward, in next. But in those early hours, when the streets are empty and the notifications haven't started, I remember I have a choice. To not live in reaction, to not let every ping, every headline, every expectation decide who I get to be today. It's not even about being calm. It's about being conscious, fully awake, before the world tells me what to want, what to fear, what to prove. And I used to think that kind of clarity came from big things. A breakthrough, a trip, a career change. But no, it comes from the small, stubborn act of sitting with yourself before anyone else can interrupt. And some mornings I feel nothing. I sit in the dark, and I'm just there. No big emotion, no beautiful thought, just breath. But I think that's part of it too. Making peace with the in-between. Not everything has to mean something right away. Some mornings are just a quiet yes to still being here. Sometimes I think about when I was a kid, how mornings felt so much slower back then, like time hadn't learned to sprint yet. I remember the sound of the kettle, the click of the fan, the soft thud of my dad's footsteps down the hallway. There was this stillness, not because life was perfect, but because it wasn't urgent. And somehow, waking up at 5 now brings that feeling back. Not exactly the memories, but the rhythm of them. Like my body still remembers what it was like before alarms and deadlines and performance reviews. I think we don't just crave quiet. We crave return. Return to moments that didn't demand us to be more, to know more, to prove anything. I never realized how much of adult life is about convincing others, convincing ourselves. But at 5, there's no one to convince. No eyes watching, no metrics counting, no one waiting to be impressed. And that kind of invisibility, it's not loneliness, it's freedom. The freedom to exist without armor, without the polished version, without the clever reply.
I think what scares me the most is how easy it is to forget who I am. When the world gets loud, all it takes is a bad day, a careless comment, a scroll through someone else's perfect morning routine. And suddenly I'm shrinking, editing myself, performing again. But at 5, when it's just me and the silence, I start to remember, not in a grand cinematic way, but in this quiet, almost clumsy unfolding, like finding old letters you wrote to yourself and realizing you still mean them. And I used to think I needed answers, that if I could just figure everything out, I'd finally be okay. But now, I'm starting to believe it's not about answers. It's about returning to the questions, the ones that keep you human. Who am I when no one's watching? What do I need, really? What parts of me have I been silencing? Just to stay acceptable? I don't wake up early to win anything anymore. I wake up because I'm tired of abandoning myself in a world that keeps rewarding people for being someone else. And there's something radical about choosing to meet yourself in the dark before the world tells you who to be. Something sacred about honoring your own rhythm, even if no one understands it. Even if you don't fully understand it yet. Some mornings I just sit there and say nothing at all. But that silence feels like the first honest conversation I've had in days.
Yeah, that really hits something in me. Because honestly, I don't wake up early because I have it all together. I wake up early because sometimes it's the only time I feel like I can fall apart without having to explain myself to anyone. During the day, I have to keep it moving, keep it polite, keep it strong. But at 5, no one's watching. No one's expecting me to smile or respond or inspire. It's not always beautiful. Some mornings it's messy. Some mornings it's numb. Some mornings it's just me sitting there, staring out the window, trying to gather myself enough to simply function. And weirdly, that honesty, that rawness, it gives me something real to stand on. Not confidence, but clarity. Not certainty, but space. Space to feel like I don't need to fix everything before the sun rises. That I'm allowed to just be broken for a moment and still be enough. People always think waking up early is about discipline, about ambition, but I think for people like us, it's also about survival. It's the hour before the world starts shouting, when your thoughts are still soft enough to hear, and your heart hasn't put its armor on yet. And in that softness, I meet parts of me I don't show anyone. Not because I'm hiding, but because some parts of us only speak when the world is still asleep. Lately, I've been thinking about how much of my life feels like momentum. Like I made one decision, then another, then a dozen more, and suddenly I'm in a life I didn't exactly choose. But never paused long enough to question. And during the day, it's like I'm on rails. Task after task, response after response. It's automatic. Efficient maybe, but not alive. But at 5, before the phone buzzes, before the inbox fills, I feel like I have permission to ask myself if this is still the direction I want to go. Not in some dramatic way, not like quitting everything and moving to a cabin, just quiet questioning. Like, am I still mine? Or have I slowly shaped myself to fit into places I was never meant to stay in? And the strange thing is, I don't always have an answer. But the act of asking feels like resistance. A small, quiet rebellion against autopilot. A moment to course correct, even if just an inch. Because sometimes 1 inch every morning is what keeps you from drifting entirely. No one sees that shift. No one claps for it. But I do. Because I know how easy it is to forget, how dangerous it is to never pause. And I guess that's why I wake up early. Not to finish more, but to feel again what it's like to choose.
You know, what you said about feeling like you're on rails. I get that. It's like we're running a race, but we don't even remember when we started, or why we're running at all. We just run, and it's exhausting, but somehow comforting in its predictability. I remember the first time I actually stopped and realized I wasn't living my own life. It was like being in a room full of people, but still feeling completely alone. I was checking off boxes, doing what I was supposed to do, what everyone else expected me to do. But I couldn't remember the last time I asked myself, is this what I want? And the weird thing is, when you start questioning, it's almost like everything around you pushes back. The world doesn't really like people who stop and think, does it? It's like it tells you, get up, keep moving, keep going, but it doesn't tell you where you're going. And when you stop, there's this deep, strange silence that you don't know how to fill. I guess for a long time I was afraid of that silence, afraid of what it might say about me, what it might reveal that I wasn't ready to face. I mean, when you stop, you have to look at yourself, and not the version you show the world, but the one that's been hiding in the corners, the one that's been trying to get your attention for years, but you've been too busy to hear. So yeah, waking up at 5, it sounds simple, but it's a lot harder than it seems. It's almost like giving yourself permission to feel uncomfortable, and then sit in it long enough to understand where it comes from. But I think that's what makes it worth it, right? It's not the perfect answers, or the peace we expect to find, It's the fact that we can finally give ourselves permission to be messy, to be uncertain, and still know we're okay.
You know, the more I think about it, the more I realize how much pressure we put on ourselves to get everything right. We wake up every day feeling like we have to achieve something, like our value is based on how much we can get done. And I used to be the same way. I thought if I woke up early, if I planned everything down to the last detail, then I'd be successful, then I'd be happy. But over time, I've learned that's not true. Waking up early, yeah, it's a quiet time, a time where it feels like the world hasn't yet put any demands on me. But what really matters isn't what I do in that time. What matters is what I allow myself to feel in those moments. I've realized that being productive, checking off tasks, that doesn't really define who I am. It's just a small part of it. The bigger part is learning to be kind to myself, even when I don't have everything figured out. Sometimes we get so caught up in the idea of success, we forget that it's okay to not be on top of everything. It's okay to not have a perfect plan or a flawless morning routine. I used to believe that I needed to be perfect, to feel like I had control over my life. But now I'm starting to see that perfection isn't the goal. Being real with myself, letting go of the constant need to perform, that's where true peace is. So when I wake up at 5, I don't just wake up to get things done. I wake up to give myself a chance, to just be. I don't need to be anyone else. I don't need to have all the answers. I don't need to prove anything. I just need to breathe, to take in the quiet, to be present with myself, and trust that it's okay to not have everything together.
I completely get what you're saying. I think we often forget that we're human, not machines that can keep running without needing a break. There's this idea that we need to keep up with everyone else, that if we're not doing more, we're falling behind. But what if we're missing something important by chasing that constant more? What if the most valuable thing we can do is just slow down? I used to feel like I needed to be productive every second of the day, that if I wasn't doing something worthwhile, then I was wasting time. But when I really started to think about it, I realized that time isn't just for getting things done. Time is for living. It's for feeling, for being present with the people around us, for having moments of quiet reflection. And I think that's where waking up early has changed things for me too. It's not about being super productive. It's about starting my day with intention. It's about giving myself a space to reflect before the world demands anything from me. It's a time when I can just be, without the weight of everything else pressing in, and that's been such a relief. When I wake up early, it's like I get this chance to reset. I can think about what I want my day to look like, but also what I want to feel. I can let go of the idea that I need to be perfect and just be okay with where I am. And honestly, there's a certain kind of strength in that. Not in the doing, but in the being. Not in filling up every moment, but in allowing space for myself to just exist. And in that space, I'm realizing that it's enough. It's enough to wake up, to take things one step at a time, to not have everything figured out, and to just trust that wherever I am, that's exactly where I need to be.
I couldn't agree more. The whole idea of slowing down, of just being present without the constant need to do something, that really hits home. It's easy to forget how valuable it is to just exist, to not feel pressured to always be moving forward, but to take a moment to just be in the moment. So yeah, I guess we've both come to realize something important today, that waking up early, or even just taking time to be still, isn't about perfection or productivity. It's about giving ourselves permission to pause, to reset, and to just breathe. That's something we all need to remember more often. And with that, I think it's a good place to end this conversation for today. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening to our thoughts. We'd love to hear what you think. Please feel free to like this video and leave a comment sharing your thoughts or experiences on this topic. We'd love to hear how you handle those quiet, reflective moments and what your mornings are like. Take care, and we'll see you next time.